음. Roll call.
Alderman Carter.
Here.
Alderman Roll.
Here.
Alderman Johnson. Alderman Montoya.
Here.
Alderman Rita. Alderman Fairwell. Alderman McGee.
Present.
Four here.
We have quorum. Any public comments? Any public comments?
Can hear you.
Thank you for being here.
Can hear you.
Raise the volume. Go back there and raise the volume. I talked to the residents of all 4 towns about the residents of the city. And what they had to say was, this administration closed down our 911 center. But Calumet Park has their very own. We need the hospital open and functioning as a full and complete hospital. The hospital building is already there. Why are the aldermen against bringing back the hospital? Why? Is it not just symbolism? 1,400 employees working. The ends justify the means, isn't that right? Why don't we turn this around? Let's unite our community. Unite our community. Work together to open the hospital, a complete functioning hospital. How much is this costing our taxpayers to entertain the opposition proposal? I am asking this body to lead the march in the opening of our hospital as a complete functioning hospital. Alderman Rowe, it's your ward. Your ward is dropped to you and the rest of the city council. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Moving on. On to Special Events Committee.
See how long that lasts for. I think APC on this our meeting. So we'll just kind of start here today. Just wanted to get some things on record that we want to bring ordinances to the next council meeting. And get input if anyone has any. The first one's relatively simple. Mayor and I have been talking with the Christmas Light Parade Committee about essentially making that parade a city event. It is a city event, and everything with name only. It used to be a city event, and the mayor taking through the history that knows better than me. But at the end of the day, it's our police, our public works, our fire department, our staff that are doing the majority of the work on that. We'd like to bring the existing Light Parade Committee kind of in fold with the committee. We talked to Tom Holly about it. And then also we're planning this 4th of July parade as well, which is going to be its own significant responsibility. So what we'd like to do is create a special events committee similar to other citizen advisory committees that we have, planning, zoning, forestry, etc. This one will probably actually be a little less labor intensive than some others, but there really isn't a limit on how many people we have on the committee. It would be by mayor's appointment. Obviously, we would take aldermanic recommendations of people to serve on there. Aldermen could serve on it as well if they wanted to. But the primary, for starters, anyway, more than enough work. The primary responsibilities would be the planning of the 4th of July and the Christmas parades, the sponsorships, organization of it, etc. And again, a lot of this is kind of bringing in and professionalizing and normalizing a lot of things that are already being done, which is that, we work with the Light Parade Committee to organize all the city services and everything. It really should be at the end of the day, under the banner of the city of July. And as I always like to say to the mayor, if something never goes wrong, they're not going to blame And so we should be responsible for it. We should have all our steering wheel. And this Fourth of July, project is gonna be pretty sizable. It's gonna be pretty big. So there's more than enough work. So again, welcome any input now or, between now and the next committee meeting or the next council meeting, but that's the overall general idea on the creation. So.
Any questions, comments, the Alderman? We can start putting an ordinance together. You can see it at a future meeting. All right, what else you got now?
All right, so moving on to B.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so residential parking, again, beginning of the year stuff, we're trying to get our ducks in a row and get what ordinances we want to get started with this year. We have some lingering residential parking considerations. We've had some residential requests. And then I've had sort of moving conversations with several aldermen about the subject. So what we'd like to do is really more than anything, request that any residential parking request that you have in your ward, whether it be to add, to take away, to review. We'd like to get those requests in now and start processing them, because what we would like to do is, rather than piecemeal, do as much as we can in terms of residential parking discussion, and as much as we can in terms of changes we want to make it in one fell swoop, rather than do the, be it small. So again, this is more, we want to bring an ordinance. This one might not, might be ready for the next, maybe we only have a couple ready for the next, we have to do a little bit piecemeal, that's okay too. But anything is, we want to get the ball rolling on this. What parking changes do you want to see in your ward? And that's, and elsewhere in the city that you've seen, right? Maybe it's not in your ward, but maybe it's, just something you feel is necessary, that you've heard from all of us, small cities. You have any questions on that? Other than that, it is something we are working on. It's something we're very much looking for input from individual, all depending on what you want to see in your work and throughout this.
Any questions regarding the residential parking? I'm the most, we're going to call it. You got several requests, they're all into one ordinance instead of piecemeal. Normally in past, as you guys know, we do one for each one ordinance for each one. We'd like to do it all in one over the next month or so. So if you have any requests over the last few months, last 6 months that you'd like to throw out there, we can analyze between the police department and public works, please send it our way. Moving on, website development.
Okay, so you were supposed to have an actual quote in front of you for this, but the one company that we have been talking to, they gave us numbers, but we have to get the memos in time today. So I will send that out via email to everyone. But as you know, we did a website redevelopment, RFP way back when, pulled a bunch of them, but we kind of finally started getting around to it towards the end of this year. We have not made any agreements or anything, but we do have one quote that is probably the most competitive from the best company in terms of they actually make municipal websites. That's their sole business. But government websites really are their business. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send an email with the quotes they have. So basically, to get a sense of price here, a full redesign, basically stripping our site down and building it back up as a newer looking, more modern looking, organized website. Is the base cost of that's going to be roughly $60,000 the first year. There are other, and this will all be spelled out in the menu. There are other options we can explore in terms of online permitting, moving all of our permitting and all of our permit requests and everything to online fillable forms, getting paperless, things like that. Mass communications, either with via ward or via citywide. It's worth exploring. That might be a little expensive. There's some other little bells and whistles out there too. So overall, we'll be looking at roughly budgeting about $110,000 for the first year total, because that's a lot of the big construction, and then looking at somewhere between probably $25,000 to $40,000 a year in regular costs over year-to-year costs, depending on how many bells and whistles we want to start with, and maybe add on. So Civic Plus is the name of the company. We'll send them a quote, and I'm also going to send them links to Hanover Park, Naperville, and a couple other websites they did. And you can kind of get the feel for them, and you'll see that the different pieces, the differences, the different pieces they design and offer, and then a lot of it's going to boil down to discussion at this committee level about how we want it to look, how we want it to rank, what we want to prioritize in terms of front page. But I think a lot of it is just going to be organization and cleanup, so that our website is more user friendly and easier for people to get quickly the resources that they want. So So an email before coming with some links and with those board of chat quotes as well. Yeah, I don't know what you're doing, but
So D is an ordinance establishing regulations for unscheduled city buses, and you guys have all seen in the news, there's, buses dropping off migrants in suburban areas. And this is an ordinance which would provide us with some regulations of how to deal with those buses. By police department with good direction and the force behind it, it would require these buses to have an approved, application before any type of drop off. The approval would come with very certain circumstances, and if they did not have approval and came and dropped off migrants anyways, there would be fines, etc. So this ordinance describes everything that we would want to seek to implement should this occur in the city.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Open card.
On this unscheduled intercity buses. I really have mixed feelings about it. At school, we probably get in, I would say at least one family a week. They're usually in pretty bad shape once they get here. I realize they're not being dropped off here by the bus load, but they're coming. We had a sixth grader start today. And she said that when they crossed the border, they had possessions with them. Everything was taken away from them. Everything that they had was taken away by the border agents, even their cell phones, and it's very tragic, the stories that we hear from these children. On the other hand, I do understand that it's our job to protect the city and protect our residents. I don't see these people as being criminals. You know, a lot of times they're portrayed as being young single men who, you know, are drug dealers or whatever. So far, my experience is that they're families, single mothers that escaped from various countries and looking for a better life for their children. So, like I said, I have mixed feelings because I've had to deal with some of the people who come. But I do realize that it is our obligation to protect the citizens of our city. So that's all I have to say.
And I also just want, something we've looked into, because we had a emergency call with Southfield mayors and managers a few weeks ago. A few of our neighboring towns have gotten bus loads of people dropped off. This would basically be a guidelines of redirecting the buses to taxpayer-funded shelters already established in the city of Chicago. Without this, not much we can do. So it's more supporting getting to the place where there is support available, where we do not have it.
And the fines that would be imposed wouldn't be against the migrants themselves. I guess it would be against the bus company.
Any other Alderman comments, questions? All right, we'll put something together for the next meeting. We need to go back. I believe is everybody here from the hospital redevelopment now? However you guys want to start. Okay. All right, is there any other business other than this? Under mayor's announcements, I know we kicked it last night, we tabled it. I'm just gonna read off a few comments I have regarding the text amendment that's been kicked to the next meeting. And I'll quickly go through it just while they're getting ready. And I'm sure some of the aldermen have already, or most of the aldermen reviewed this, about 60, 70-page document that's been brought to us from planning and zoning, basically overhauling our current zoning ordinances. I have certain concerns regarding multifamily dwellings being permitted without special use, microwave relay towers being permitted without special use, transmission equipment buildings permitted without special use. It's more, I'd like to keep it on the more restrictive side where there's some more checks and balances rather than just getting a building permit. So I have many questions regarding that. Wherever you see a P, it's a permitted use, meaning they don't have to come to city council or planning and zoning. Whereas S is special use, where they have to go to special use and planning, zoning, and city council. I'd rather lean towards more special use than permitted, because there is some checks and balances in that route. In the past, we've been operating under oral history. We can't have mechanic shops on Western Avenue. We can't have multifamily dwellings. A lot of them are based on ordinances passed back in the sixties, seventies, and eighties. But unfortunately, those are not up with the times. So there is a need to do this updated to modern current, zoning and building codes. So I'd like to just lean more on the conservative side. So at the very least, there's more eyes and ears and the public's available to hear what's going on within the neighborhoods, more of the special use side than permitted. Right now, it's an even split between permitted and special use out of these hundreds of different uses that could be applied for. I'd like to see more of that special use without going through individual one. I counted, I have at least 30 here that I'd like to switch from permitted to special use. And I know, I mentioned a few other Aldermen, I have concerns about our parking situation being very restrictive to business, the way it currently stands. Just to give you an example, if, we didn't allow, the Lyric Theater or Bub Cafe or Studios Cafe to open through council intervention. By our zoning code, they wouldn't be allowed to open. Because there's no parking available to them, at least in dedicated private lots. So I want that to be something, if you haven't already done, please review that additional pages regarding parking over the next few weeks. And if you go through this use table, again, P is permitted, meaning they don't have to come to the city council at all. They would just go to building department, get their permits, file their business license, and they can open it, and we wouldn't even know until they're already open. I'd like more special use restrictions within the law, within reason. This was my opinion. Alderman.
But doesn't the building department have a list of things that they need to follow?
Building code wise, yes, but as of right now, let's say if we adopt the way it stands,
Right.
next door to you, they can build, I might say even apartment building out 20,000. We want to make it more restrictive, I believe. Right now, it's, our current zone says you can't have multifamily without coming to council. So we, in some ways, it's making it easier. I don't like some ways that makes it easier. I want to still go through the steps without creating more and more red tape on this. But we've cleaned a lot of it up. We only have one committee now, planning and zoning, rather than in the past, they have to go to planning, they have to go through zoning, then they have to go through a committee, then through city council. Have steps, but it's only two now, planning, zoning, and city council. So I think if we, knowing that we've already streamlined under this new administration, combining several committees, I think we can make it more restrictive, or at the very least, they come through one of these committees. So, just my opinion. And if you haven't already reviewed it, please review it for the next meeting. We've been tabling it for several months now. There is one application out there that's been waiting for us to pass this, and if we pass it. So it is not, it's not hugely time sensitive, but by the end of January, we probably should move on to this. So please take the time to look at it. And again, the fee is permitted, meaning it doesn't have to go to council. It's the easiest way to understand it. If you think something on that line should go to council, we should change it to the next.
My concern is the chart in which it states the off-street parking requirements. A lot of our properties are older housing, older real estate stock, and it doesn't fit within the parameters. So I really think we need to relook at that.
I agree, and
Yeah.
not to take anything back from the much work that's been put into this, we needed to do this. Planning and zoning have been putting a lot of hours into this. I agree with 90% what's in here. I just have some concerns. I'm sure I've talked to Alderman McGee about this too. He has some concern, and Alderman Rita has some parking concerns. So we should just spend some more time over the next few weeks and really buckle down and try to get this done next week. Is my opinion under Mayor's comments. All right, Osco, former Osco.
This was in Feldman.
Yes, sir. Okay.
I'm Nick Standiford. I'm a zoning attorney at Shane Banks, 70 West Madison, Suite 5400 in Chicago. I've been the zoning attorney for several years now on this project, and we're excited to be at this stage. With you, I give you a printed copy of the floor plan, so you have something to look at other than just the PowerPoint here. So this PowerPoint is essentially the same as what I gave to the Planning and Zoning Commission a few months ago. So I wanted to make sure that the board had all the information about this project, about what we're looking to do. I also have some folks here who have my experts here. I have my landscape architect here. We have our traffic engineer, parking and traffic engineer. We have our medical operators here as well. So I'll introduce them throughout the presentation. And if you have any questions as I'm going, please feel free to stop me, and I'll be sure to answer any questions. The history of the old hospital. So when I was in the building to try to get a feel for what it was like, there were these pictures, and there were these pictures of the history of the hospital. And I thought that was interesting. So I took these photos, and I reviewed this document online. I don't know who put it together, but it said that in 1904, there was a Reverend Frampus Renby, and he wrote to another churchgoer, Reverend Father Farber, who was in St. Louis, about this site that he wanted to be a hospital. And Farber wrote back that he thought it'd be a good idea. So they brought together the sisters, various sisters from the church, to operate this hospital. So they called it the St. Francis Hospital, and it started with 25 to 30 patients in the first 10 years here. This is the 1905 hospital. From there, they expanded to about 100 rooms, and the old residence became a residence for the sisters. It was Reverend Paul Roche laid the cornerstone in 1916. In 1950, there was an addition that was added. In 1967, the hospital purchased Central Park for a new building. That's the building you see here on the left. It was expanded in 2001. It reopened in 2003 to become a 314-bed facility, as you know. It's 55,000 square feet of new construction, 46,000 feet of renovation. That's the hospital you see, the old hospital you see here today. In 2008, there were changes to the country, changes to the Medicare. It brought the hospital near bankruptcy. As you all know, the Sisters of St. Mary had to convey it to the entity that ended up being Metro South. And in 2019, I reviewed a news release saying that it had to close due to decreased patient volume, increased market saturation, reduced insurance reimbursements, and operational issues, causing about 8.4 million in operational losses in 2018. I know that this city tried to save the hospital, and officials in the articles said they talked to about 40 operators trying to make that happen. But the model just didn't work. And so the hospital closed, and the hospital's been closed, I think, since 2019, 2020. And the property owner who I work for wants to figure out, what do we do with this? What do we do with the hospital if there's no hospital coming back? And we submit to you that to turn the lights back on in this building, you need a multi-use future. A multi-use future that involves commercial development, including medical uses that kind of an homage to the past. No emergency room, but potentially an urgent care facility, surgery center, infusion, things like that, medical uses that harken to the days of the past. But also residential in the upper floors of the old hospital for age-restricted senior housing, which is a definite need. So with these multi-uses, you know, that's the way you can turn the lights back on. There were some questions at the last committee of the whole meeting on November 15th about the developer and could they make this multi-use future happen. So we included some slides that I emailed to the board today. I just wanted to run through those with you so everyone knew kind of the projects that this developer had done. Office to residential at the Randolph Tower, that's 312 units. Office to residential, 30 units at the Plymouth Building, which is very local in Chicago. $50 million development for 127 units in Rainbow Village. And then we have an office renovation of 17 floors. So the developer has a proven track record of being able to take projects that involve large-scale rehabilitations and making them work into residential or other uses. There's been some concerns. I know Alderman Fairwell, who couldn't be here tonight, was concerned about how this could be paid for. So in my email today, I included a capital plan which describes how this particular developer would go about developing this property. The property. Here's we wanted to include this slide to show everybody that it's not just the old hospital building that's part of this site. The landlord, excuse me, the owner owns several properties that house parking for this site. You have here the parcels on the south. You have the parcel on the north. You have these parcels sandwiched between the village owned parcel here to the east. And then I wanted to also point out that this developer has in good faith worked with the city. We entered into a licensing agreement in July of 2023, just this past year. That's good through April of 2024. And that license agreement allows the city at no cost to use the Metro South Park and to host all the events that have taken place that I get emails about all the time. So if this development is approved, I think that licensing agreement, we'd allow that to continue. I wanted to also point out that there were some questions about the pavilion. Why isn't the pavilion part of this proposal? And the pavilion is owned by a third party now. Everyone reminds me yet there's a tunnel that connects the two. And in my package, I submitted the idea would be to partition it off, to barricade it off, so that no one would be allowed to go in and out between the two properties. The one kind of quirky part is that the pavilion is powered by this building B, which is the powerhouse. So there would have to be some sort of a utilities usage agreement that would be developed between those two parties. So as you know, this is in the UTOD zone here in downtown Blue Island. This just, I overlaid the zoning map on the parcels to just show kind of where this was and what it was adjacent to. And I also wanted to include some slides from Google Earth, just to show everyone kind of what it looks like from a bird's eye view. Obviously, this is close to the metro station, the metro station, which is super helpful for the senior housing component for those folks and other folks who want to use the space to go in and out of downtown and back to Blue Island. There's a loading dock I want to mention here. This is a proposed grocer space on the first floor, and there is a loading dock down here that I just wanted to point out. This is the view looking south. This shows the large parking garage that's on site that will be utilized for parking. It shows the entrance to the former ER, and then it's got the access here kind of to the newer beautiful lobby area. View looking east. Everyone knows the hospital. View looking west. So I just wanted to point out here, this is going to be utilized, and I'll get into this later in the slides, but this area here, and then this area down here are going to be the residential entrances. Those would be where residents can enter the building. I think this area will probably be good for moving into the building, as there are two large loading areas on the ground floor there that are conducive for that. The planned development. Okay, so there's a lot going on, and I wanted to do one slide to kind of boil it all down. And this is it. So these are the proposed uses for the preliminary plan development. There's senior housing, there's urgent care, there's adult daycare, limited service hotel to service the families of the guests who are, the families of the senior housing residents. There'll be a grocer, and then there'll be other medical / office / commercial uses. Since this is an old hospital, the room sizes are smaller than what the building code would allow for room sizes, minimum room sizes. So there's a departure from, there are some room sizes that are as small as 300 square feet. The Blue Island code only allows up to 500 square feet. So we're asking within this plan development for a departure down to 300 square feet so that this building can house those residents in those size rooms. signage, we don't have our tenants, signed up yet, but when we do, come to lease with them, I'm sure they'll have sign packages that they'll want to bring to the city and say, here's what we're looking to do, and here's why. So, a part of the senior living, you might ask, why are these room sizes too small? Are 300 square feet too small? But, as anyone who's visited the Aurora site can tell you that the 300 square foot room sizes are not too small. That's what the seniors actually, in some cases, prefer. They don't want to be stuck in their rooms. They want to be out. And in any senior residential living situation, they're going to provide a lot of amenities. And that's so that people feel like they're in a community, that they're like back in college almost. So you have theaters, the community meeting rooms, you have game rooms, you have fitness centers, and you have all those things. And we've provided a matrix in your, I think that should be in your development proposal that you have as well. But if it isn't, I can provide that later. So then those are the amenities, and that's the breakdown of the amenities. There's going to be a lot of different stuff that people will utilize. But what I thought would be the most helpful thing would be to go floor by floor. And there's a lot of floors in this building, and if I went floor by floor, I could show you all the uses that were proposed. So this PowerPoint doesn't align completely with your handouts here. The floor plan is the same, but what I did here was I added pictures that I took inside the building to give you a sense of what it looks like now. So you can kind of visualize what it might be like later. So it might be easiest to, while you're looking at the PowerPoint, you also want to reference the handout that you see. That's fine too. So this is the ground level. This is not very attractive space. There's low ceilings. This is the storage, the area I suggested for maybe people who want to move in. I'll also use it for potential storage. These are folks, a lot of people who are going to be downsizing, going from their house, single-family homes into smaller spaces. So that it's likelihood that they'll need storage, and this would be ideal storage space. This is located kind of here, and again, I think about here, this in this green area. So the green you see is residential. The red you see is going to be proposed commercial space. We don't have tenants for all these spaces, but when they do come, that's where we'd like to put them. As I said, this is not super attractive space down here. The morgue is down here, but it is actually this is the cafeteria. Nope, next slide is it. Okay, so then you go up a level from there, and it gets a little nicer. So here's where you have your, I think this is the former emergency room in here. And so this is perfect. This is what the medical users who are here today, this is what they like for their urgent care probably. You have existing machinery in there. You have places that I think that at one point they were filming medical shows here because it's an old hospital. This is perfect for people who want to have outpatient care, things like that. It's tailor-made for it already. So there's a lot of need for that space and use for that space. This is the cafeteria, I believe, which would be situated on the mezzanine level, and you see here in green. So the cafeteria, it looks like an old hospital cafeteria. It'd be great for a residential cafeteria. The entrance I wanted to point out is kind of down here. So there's a few different ways to access the property, but it's adjacent to the parking garage down there. When you go up a level, that's level 1. This is that beautiful entrance that I was mentioning to you at the beginning, where the residents will come through, get checked through security, and then be allowed up to their units through the corridor here. The purple here is SarahCare. The property owner wanted to make sure I talked about SarahCare some more because it is an important use to this site. SarahCare is an adult daycare, and the idea that folks that live in the building or folks that live outside the building can come and utilize their services. There is a letter in your packets that from SarahCare explaining that they're super excited about this project, and this would be the area that they would be in. This area in red here was the proposed grocer area, but also could be chopped up, and part of it could be medical uses. The grocer entrance, we'd have to carve out an entry here on this side of the building. There's a parking lot right here, but that would be a good area for it. we don't have a grocer use yet. The idea would be that we would be approved for any type of commercial use that was permitted in this zoning district, but also the grocer use. And that's where that you put them. I know that there's a Trader Joe's, I think, nearby, but, or Aldi, I think it is, right? In Aldi. So if the Trader Joe's wanted to come here, or if anyone's listening from Whole Foods or anything like that, is interested in this location, obviously, we'd love to have them. Go ahead.
So it would definitely be a grocery store, not a convenience store.
I'm not sure what it's gonna be. I think if we can get I'm not sure what type of a convenience store, like a Walgreens or something might be great. But like a 7-Eleven or something like that. If it's a permitted use in the UTOD, then I think we'd probably just be able to get a building permit for it. If you wanted to condition that on a special use permit or something like that.
No, I was just wondering what you're thinking.
Yeah, I think we're thinking a grocer, and that's what we're hoping for. But if a qualified, convenience store that the city didn't have an issue with, wanted the space, I think that would be a decent use as well.
What's the square footage of that area?
That's a good question. I don't have that with me offhand, but Dan, you have it? It's a huge space.
It's probably 30,000.
30,000 square feet. So it's big, but a lot of work would have to go into it. So I took this picture to show you kind of, this is the hallway. I think one of these hallways may be up here. So it looks like a hospital space, obviously, still. So to the extent the medical uses want to use this space and take it up from some of the grocer space, I think there's enough space to do that. But you know, the uses or the end users are in flux still. We're looking for the preliminary plan development here to be approved so that we can start advertising those spaces and getting these our building plans right.
Real quick,
Yes.
before you move on.
On the roll.
To what extent are operations for the Sarah Care facility discrete or separate from the greater facility?
So, yeah, the entrance here is separate from the residential entrance. So the residential entrance is gonna be right here where this arrow is, and then the Sarah Care entrance would be kind of on the side of the building right there. So my understanding is that they just have different entrances and be blocked off otherwise.
So residents would not be allowed to. So
The residents, if they wanted to, they could come down the elevator, go outside and go back into the space. And if they wanted to use the Sarah Care, they could. But it's not like part of the services that are offered. It's just, you want to get it.
That was gonna be my next
Yeah,
question.
you wanna
Is this for
go-
the residents only?
No, it's for residents or anyone in Blue Island whose, parents or grandparents have a need for it to use it.
As well as the grocers, would that be open to the public?
Open to the public. Yeah. Yeah, and the idea is, you want to make this as attractive as possible to those people who are going to try to lease the space. And so creating ability to open it up to the whole public, I think is appealing to them. This is the level 2, so you have some really nice like X-ray rooms, whatever the heck you got the doctor can tell you. But the idea would be to utilize some of those for the medical uses. And this is where the residential starts coming in. So there are these rooms down here are 1-bedrooms, and these were the products of the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings, where they asked us to increase the amount of 1-bedroom units. And so we are up to now 44 1-bedroom units by including some of these down here. There are 72 studio units. I think that's right, Dan, is it? 172 studio units. Yep, 172 studios and 44 1-bedrooms. This is the limited service hotel area up here in gray. This again would be for the folks who want to stay and visit their families like over Christmas or whatnot. This is not an area that's open to the outside public. It's not like a Days Inn where you can just go book a room there. So that's the second floor. Go ahead.
The limited service hotel, I'm sorry, my eyes are not good enough. Do you have square footage listed for those rooms?
My eyes are also on gray. Can you message for Val? Yeah. Okay. Can I get back to you on that? Sure. Going up to level 3, now we're fully in our residential uses. The ones with the yellow bubbles, those are the one bedrooms. And the ones with the little red underneath, that's a new one that was created after the zoning board said, create more one bedrooms. So the idea is that each one would have I think these all have windows. And then the interior would be like community rooms, other, staff rooms, because these are all going to be staffed by people with training to provide, medical care if need be. I don't know if they're full-on medical people. The folks at Aurora were here last time, and they could have answered those questions. They couldn't be here tonight. But they have experience operating a senior living facility and said that the folks on site are trained staff and can handle like an emergency. Obviously, you call for 911 if it was a true emergency, but they can, assess the situation and help out if need be. So these are the one bedrooms on the outside. The rest are these smaller efficiency units. I can't recall if this picture that I took is a feature one bedroom or an efficiency, but I just wanted to kind of take a picture, give you a sense of the space that is in there. And then I think each of these have bathrooms already. So the idea is to utilize the space that's there, not to create all new rooms that are bigger. So that's the reason for the minimum room size variation. So now that was level 3. Now you're seeing much of the same stuff on level 4, a few less one bedrooms, and then a lot of studios. This is another picture I took of one of the rooms. There's some weird angles on these rooms, like this is the bathroom in here, then you have this weird curvature, so not every room is the same, and I know that's what they experienced in Aurora as well. You go up to level 5, some more of the same, all residential. You go to level 6, maybe a rooftop terrace someday if things go well, but this is the view picture I took on the top, just showing you how pretty it is. You can look all the way into the city from here, and it's quite amazing. So this is not as many units up here as the top. So everyone probably wants to know what the rooms look like. These are just renderings. I can't tell you if these are going to be what they all look like, but these are the studios. I just wanted to give you a space plan of how these could be laid out. They would have, and here's the one bedroom with the separation, and then the bedroom on the side is the bathroom there. These are the studio renderings. The idea would be, I think they have sinks. I think everyone gets in Aurora, they get a little fridge. But the idea is that you go to eat your meals outside of your room, not in your room. This kind of gives you a sense of how big the studio might be. Landscaping and parking. So I'm gonna kick it over to who I call the Steves, because they're both named Steves and they're both engineers. So I'll do my traffic engineer Steve first, and then we'll do our landscape engineer if that's okay. So Steve, if you can come up and state your name and your experience and what you conclude to be whether the proposed uses have enough parking on site.
Good evening. My name is Steve Corcoran. I'm Director of Traffic Engineering at Erickson Engineering out of the Great Lake, Illinois office. And I prepared the parking study that was submitted to the city. And we looked at the parking requirements 3 different ways. The first way is we started with the TOD requirement. Basically, when you redevelop in that district, you don't have to provide any additional parking. So that's probably the easiest analysis we did. But we also did a check of the city zoning code parking requirements. We looked at what was required for all the different uses that were shown up earlier in the slide deck. That here's how many spaces are required for all those different uses. And for the undetermined tenant space where we don't have tenants specified yet, we looked at that in 3 scenarios. What was all medical office, or retail. And in all 3 cases, we provide more parking than what is required by the city code for those different scenarios. And then the third way we looked at it was we went to the Institute of Transportation Engineers Parking Generation Manual, looked at what the actual demand may be for all the different uses. And again, we found there was plenty of parking that we're proposing to serve those uses on a demand basis. And again, we looked at that scenario, whether the undetermined tenant space was medical, office, or retail. Currently, kind of hard to see, but between the parking garage and all the lots, there's roughly 909 spaces between all those parking locations. With some changes in the garage, I believe that number goes up to 933. There's some unused space that we're gonna restripe to get some additional parking spaces, so there's plenty of parking. This parking analysis is conservative because we didn't look at interaction between uses in terms of someone like, you know, medical office employee will shop at the grocery store, you know, use one parking space, not two. And also, we made no adjustments for transit for the buses as well as the metro station. And, you know, some of the employees obviously could take advantage of that. And our overall conclusion is we have enough parking.
Okay, and then I'll
read it.
No, go ahead.
Parking, is parking an additional cost to, the person who's renting or?
No, I'm not aware if we've got that far yet.
It seemed like that they had said that at one of the last meetings, that it was an additional cost.
Okay, I have to check with the client, but, like Steve said, there's a lot of parking here, so hopefully it'll be nominal. So now I wanted to give it to our other Steve, to talk about the landscaping on the site. And your hard copy is going to be a color copy, and I apologize, this is not a color copy. So I would refer to that for your landscape plan. It should be a one-page sheet. I can occupy it.
Thank you. As Nick said, my name is Steve Gregory. I'm with Erickson Engineering. I'm the landscape architect for the project. It's an interesting process because working with, as I like to call them, the other students in our office, we have to look at balancing the parking, what's out there, and then also trying to get as close as we can to your new ordinance that wasn't in place when these lots were created. So, and also just bringing them up back to a better standard. They've been not cared for, not taken care of over the years. Some of them are as simple as replacing plants in existing islands. Some of them will have to look at adding in some opportunities for some green space within those parking lots, and still, again, trying to target that parking as much as we can and providing as much parking as we can, while also greening up these parking lots to make them a little more attractive, breaking up some of that heat island effect with the landscape islands, as your ordinance now recognizes is kind of the best practice. So, and in addition to that, there's also some challenges with ownership, as was mentioned, the one lot, there's a segment in the middle that's actually owned by the city, and then there's either end is owned by the hospital. So working through some of those challenges, we're confident that we're going to make this, bringing back a lot of greens that's been neglected over the years. Some of the parkways have simply been paved over the years. So we'll continue to work with staff to bring some of those things up to code and even enhance over what's there. I know that the cursory review or the preliminary review that's done by your outside consultant also wants to look at the opportunities that might be there in some of those larger lots where we can actually have some a bioswale or bioinfiltration opportunities, so that we can create not only green space for that parking lot, but also something that helps with stormwater runoff and getting some infiltration, some percolation, so that we can start to filter that water as it would dissipate off the site. There is an area back there on the side towards the tracks where we do have an outdoor area for a patio space and some outdoor opportunity there for the residents. What exact form that takes yet is still being worked through, but we're anticipating some kind of outdoor seating with some pavers in a little bit nicer areas, so that people can get out in a little bit different setting than they can elsewhere within the community. With that, I don't know if there's any specific questions, but be happy to answer any that I can at this point. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
And so I think what I was thinking about when I saw Steve's plan was that this is gonna be a major improvement. And it really only happens if the plan development is approved, because as you'll see in the capital plan, the financing would come once the plan development was approved. And at that point, this wish list of all these uses and all this senior housing and all this landscaping, that could come to fruition. But without your approval on the 23rd, and I say the 23rd because under the city's ordinance, it has to be voted on within 90 days of when it receives the public hearing report. So, and I think that's coming up in early February. So I would ask do you have any questions now or on the 23rd, or even in between those two meetings? I'm happy to go ahead, Alderman Rita.
If it was approved and you could not fill each unit, what would you do then with those empty units?
We leave them until someone we could
Just
find.
empty?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, there's a huge, massive building. And our hope is that Dan would do a good job, or any other leasing agent, to fill up the spaces. But our belief is that if you bring in the senior housing, and if you bring in these medical uses, who these gentlemen will talk about in a second, then that's a good use of the building. And it's better than tearing it down. I don't even know if that's a feasible option with environmental stuff, with other stuff, but you know, I wanted to make sure that the hospital doesn't seem to be coming back like a big hospital like this. So what do you use this for? And what we come to is the best thing to use it for is multiple things. Go ahead, Alderman.
Also, I was under the understanding that this was independent senior living, correct?
Correct.
So with the adult daycare, could you explain that a little more?
Yeah, so if anyone wants to spend the day, I'm not sure how adult daycare works. Someone could help me out.
Yeah, I didn't,
But my understanding is that if they need extra, I assume they have programming for various classes and things like that at this adult daycare. And they could go there if they wanted to, and then go back into their room at the end of the day, if they wanted something to do. Or it could just be used completely up by the outside public if the residents here at the facility don't want to use it, or don't have any need for it.
so it wouldn't be safe for an Alzheimer patient.
I'm not,
No, this
Okay,
is for
also-
independent.
Working couples would drop off their parents, for the day, 8 to 4, 8 to 5. Then they'd have activities all day long to engage in. But when you get into certain, levels of dementia or Alzheimer's, whatever, that's not what it is about. It's for active, but senior adults that you don't want to leave them at home. You don't want them, turning on the gas or just being unattended if they live in the same household or, in the neighborhood. But that's the primary for the outside, tenants or outside visitors for the adult daycare. Drop them off at 8 o'clock, pick them up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock.
And yet, would that be something through your insurance? Like,
There has got over, 39 locations around the US. And some states there is reimbursement via insurance. It goes state by state. But it, keeps them busy and mentally, physically doing things. The son or daughter-in-law would never just, they're not worried during the day, not around at work. That's something to do. Some people do mention. The personnel is, they're clinically trained, licensed clinical social workers, and there's a whole spectrum of their background with treating adults.
so I want to mention, I think 2 more things. We've given you a handout from, I think we've already given this one to the last city council meeting in December, but this is a handout about the Aurora site. If anyone wants to visit Aurora, they've done kind of what we're looking to do. They have residential units, these senior age restricted units, and they have medical, I think they have an urgent care there and some other medical uses there. I know that staff, Tom went to the site and was able to talk with the property managers there. And I know that Alderman Farnwell got an opportunity to go to the site and was impressed by what he saw there. In your packets, there's a letter from those property managers, JTE Real Estate. We've been talking with them about how do we make this project in Aurora as successful as your project. This project in Blue Island is as successful as your project in Aurora, and they've given us some tips, and I think the parties are gonna continue to work together to try to figure out how that model can work here. They've definitely been helpful. And we're gonna try to get them back here on the meeting on the 23rd. But if you have any other questions before then, if you want to go ahead, Alderman Carr.
There's one thing that kind of bothers me. Your written description of the various apartments in your renderings don't match up. Your studio units you say are going to be between 300 and 350 square feet. Your rendering of the studio apartment works out to about 420 square feet. I mean, and these are the measurements that you've put in.
Yeah, I can't comment on that. If we need to go back and get you another rendering, I'm happy to do that before the 23rd.
It would be like two-thirds the size of what this rendering is. And the same is true of the one bedroom. You're saying 600 square feet, and this rendering comes out to about 840.
Yeah, I'm happy to get you a response on that before the next meeting.
It's just, Sam, I mean, we got different room sizes, so you just could.
I know, but none of the room sizes that you're talking about are represented.
The top one is 350, our biggest one bedroom.
Your rendering right here
big for that. So we need to go back and redo that.
is 420 square feet. By your own measurements, it says 14 feet 3 inches by 29.5 feet. That comes out to about 420 square feet. And you're saying it's between 300 and 350. That means this is going to have to be shrunk down quite a bit.
We'll follow up on that and get back to you. So thank you. That's I'll have to talk to our renderer.
Yeah, now, your architect, Aurora, they start out at 225 square feet, but each and every one of the units is almost different. And they have slants, curves, where we get more standard rooms that we're dealing with, but sometimes the architects take some liberty in presenting what an efficiency is and what one bedroom is.
So JT, the company I was mentioning with the letter of support in your packet, they manage Aurora's facility. They say, of note, at our Bardwell residences, we have been receiving the highest leasing velocity with the smaller unit size apartments. So they said that last time they were here, is that their smaller units are actually the ones that are most desirable. And I'm not sure if that's because of the cost or what it is, but that's what they said based on their experience. So the last piece of this is in your email that you got today, I also included a letter of support that we previously provided from Premier Occupational Health. That's a group that Dan McNulty's been working with to provide the urgent care and occupational health medical services that we're looking for in the building. So since that, so Premier Occupational Health, the principals there have been talking with Dr. Diaz about making this a multidisciplinary medical office space.
Right.
So I'm going to let Dr. Diaz come up here and talk about that and explain what his vision is for how to use this space for the old medical purposes.
Thank you. Good evening. We've looked at the hospital, and there is, as you all know, the hospital closed approximately 3 years ago, and there's a void vacancy now for medical services for Blue Island. We've looked at the hospital, and we're trying to get as comprehensive as possible for medical delivery. We've looked at what they had for the clinic space, approximately, again, you can talk on this, on the square footage, about 25,000 square feet. What we'd like to do, talking with my background is ambulatory care centers. I have one in Water Tower. I've also, I've been in practice 40 years, since 1984. But my past is multiple primary care clinics with physical therapy,
in ambulatory care centers. What we'd like to do is divide the space where we can provide urgent care, we can provide physical therapy, we can provide occupational health. We'd like to be able to provide mental health services. We'd like to be able to provide an infusion clinic. What I mean by infusion clinic is a clinic where we can do outpatient therapy for oncology, cancer patients, rheumatology patients that require IV infusion that may take 4, 5, 6 hours to do it all on an outpatient basis. And we'd also like to do an ambulatory care center. They have, I believe, 6 operatories that are in the new area that we may be able to utilize. Obviously, we have to abide by all the regulations, Medicare, the state, the county. But there is space that I believe can be utilized where we can have comprehensive medical services delivered to this community. We're in the infant stage right now, planning. But I do believe that the space is available. And I believe that our vision is to be able to have a comprehensive healthcare network in this facility, not only to service the patients or the tenants that are going to be in the building, but also for the community at large. Do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here tonight, Doctor. I have a pair of questions, if I may. Can you speak to, I guess, where the premium is placed with regard to this array of services, right? Is it really just on tenancy, right, and filling the available space, or is it this sort of synergy or sort of an array of services that work best together? Does that make sense?
That's a good question.
For example, if 4 infusion clinics all line up, they all want to operate in the space, would you just simply allow them in because they want the space, or is it finding that particular service and augmenting it with others as you spoke?
You know, the way we have it, the way initial structure right now is we're probably going to have multiple entities, meaning the physical therapy would be separate, the urgent care be separate, occupational health be separate. We'd like to phase it in if we can, not to utilize all 25,000 square feet at first. I think that the essential services that we'd like to provide right off the bat is urgent care, occupational health, physical therapy. Then we can move into, again, the hardest part for this is going to be the staffing. We got to get the docs. Right now, we have urgent care docs, we have occupational docs, we have physical therapists, but we need to get the support of additional physicians to complement this.
And are you open to partnering with existing entities? For example, I personally work with infusion clinics or wound care clinics. It's part of the sort of modularization of healthcare, right? So would it be seeking only then to bring these services in-house, or would you partner with existing companies that may already offer these services?
No, we're open.
Okay.
Depending on the services they provide and the reputation that they bring, we're open.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you.
I've been working with Bruce McGovney. My name is Michael Lestos. I'm an ER physician. This project is kind of cool. I worked with some of the other people at the Bloom Haven, this site to help start the urgent care there. This is kind of personal to me because I was a resident at Western University and I actually rotated at Blue Island Hospital from 2005 to 2008. The director there was Dan Kowalczyk. And I remember getting an email the other day that they were going to close the hospital down. I don't know what happened, but they opened another 11 years after that. But this was for lack of a better word, a banging facility. You had 45, 50,000 people coming to the ER a year there. It was really busy. I loved working there personally. unfortunately, throughout the country, the shuttered hospital situation has to be remedied, and this is, I think, the best way to do it is have a multidisciplinary kind of project, which we worked at in Aurora, and I think kind of been talking to some people at St. Margaret's in Hammond, Indiana, who are going through the same situation, so. I know my partners and I are kind of excited to put urgent care there, start on health, and kind of build this up. Questions, man?
Questions?
So. So this is the preliminary plan development that we're asking for a vote on the 23rd. After that process, that's to basically to approve the concept of what we're trying to do. After that, we would, if we were recommended and approved, we would, and we were recommended unanimously by the Planning and Zoning Commission. If we were approved by the City Council on the 23rd, we would have an architect prepare final plans and present those back to the board, the City Council, for final approval of the final plan development. There were some questions about, I just want to make sure I kind of just highlighted some of the things that I sent over so that you knew I heard you at the last committee of the whole meeting. There was a question about the water bills. Why haven't the water bills been paid? Well, the property is currently held by basically two lenders, and we haven't got them to be able to pay those yet. But we thought that there could be a condition of this plan development that said that within 60 days of approval, that those bills would be paid. Or as a condition of occupancy, meaning no one can go in there and utilize the facility until the water bill's been paid. So that's the request there, is if the city wants to make that a condition of approval, that basically that this lapses, this plan development, if not paid, I think that would be agreeable. Same for the fire suppression system. This is a building that's been not used for a long time. A lot of the sprinklers don't work. Some of the fire alarms were working over the summer, but Dan has had folks in there working on that stuff. And the full fire suppression system, if that would also be a condition of the plan development, that if any occupied space would have to obviously meet the fire code. Those are two conditions that I thought might be helpful, because I know that they were concerns of the board, and I know they were concerns of Alderman Farnwell when I spoke with him. Any other questions or conditions that were requested for this? You know, we're open to hearing. We appreciate everyone's time on this. We know this is a massive decision for the city, as I talked about the history of this hospital. So we think that this vision for the future is the right one, and we ask for your support in that pursuit. And welcome any questions.
So, I have a quick one. I believe looking at the services provided to the residents, that wellness checks were not included within like it's extra for what wellness checks. I mean, what's to say that, you know, a resident doesn't come out of their room for a couple of days and just, you know, all of a sudden there's like a smell, or, you know, it's like, you know, is that being like accounted for? Like,
Yeah, I can't speak to the operator. I assume that the property management company wouldn't bill for any services that they were seriously concerned about someone's health. But I can get back to you before the next meeting as to the process for those wellness checks.
Nick, I got some questions.
Yes, sir.
Some more complicated than others, and I think I might have asked this before. What do you plan on calling this place?
Well, I know the medical guys wanted to call it Isle Allure or something like that, or Allure Isle, because that means Blue Island. But I'm not sure if I really like that. No,
I wouldn't be cute with it. I just don't like Metro South.
I know you don't, and that's why I don't want to call it Metro South, and it's certainly
All right,
not
so you
going to
don't know
call
about
Metro
name yet.
South residences or anything.
I read somewhere else in a previous agreement, you want to keep the existing signage, which is all garbage. It's such a
Take
minor thing. You're spending millions of dollars. Why would you?
The locations of the existing signage, like for example, like the the monument sign you see kind of on this corner of Union and Gregory.
Oh, yeah.
Like that location is, I guess, what we're looking for. We're gonna take all the signs down and put new signage up.
Pavilion, elephant in my room, right?
Yes, sir.
Middle of my town. This is in the middle of town, pavilion's right there, and a tunnel and all that stuff we talked about before. Utilities. There's no plan right now of anything between the pavilion and this. There's no connections at all, right?
I think they do utilize the utilities from the
I'm
powerhouse.
saying right now, they're not part of this agreement. Are you guys even talking to whoever owns the property now?
I haven't talked to them, no.
Yes.
That's a big concern for me, because they're tied,
Yeah.
they're tied. You showed black and white photos, that's the building, they just refasaded it with stucco, because that was the thing. I have I have more questions regarding the building. Right now.
Yeah.
But I have lots of
I
questions
don't
regarding
it's looked into their own independent utilities, spending the money to do that. It was a
part of the agreement, that would be, you guys would.
Yeah, they
propose
figure out
separating
whether
everything.
it's use utilities or they put their own.
So, Mr. Mayor, that could be a good condition of the plan development approval, that there be some sort of an agreement as to usage.
I got
utilities.
conditions, that, we won't go through them all, if
Okay.
this goes any further. And again, I just have conditions, I'm not pro or against it. It's the best idea that's been brought so far to the city regarding this property, I'll say that. The properties along Western Avenue, you've discussed, as we discussed it, it's convoluted between the city property, like the parking lot north of Demar's. We own some of the pins, you guys own some of the pins, but everybody thinks it's your guys' property. I want that clarified through this process. Either it's city property, or it's not. Nobody's walking from this facility 2 blocks away to park on Western Avenue. No one ever used to before. I have no idea why the hospital even got the property. But we own some of that parking lot, and you guys own some of it. And it's being leased right now to Cook County without our authorization, our portion of it. Right, so that I have a gripe about that. Because DMARS and other places have always had an agreement when St. Francis and Metro House was there, that was a public parking lot. And, you know, the signs went up, we pulled the signs down because you put them on our private property, which is city property. It's just not being handled very professionally. Dan knows exactly what I'm talking about. The park on the corner, I want that to be a city park. All right, get it off your tax roll, we'll maintain it, we'll improve it, unlike what's going on now. We maintain it now. We've always maintained it. If this goes forward, that's gonna be one of my conditions. Figure out this convoluted property stuff along Western Avenue. What's yours, what's not? Square footage, I do have concerns. Less now that I've sat on it. You guys did your market research. I'm assuming you're gonna have to make profit off this, not me. But I am concerned about the square footage, not so much for if anybody's gonna rent it. It's who's gonna rent it,
Right.
all right? So that's my issue with square footage. And I would like to increase the square footage. And I'll throw it out there as a hybrid. You have so many 700, 800 unit, and you have some that are 300, 400, and the average is over 500, 600, something like that, that I'm throwing out. The water bill, we have an unpaid water bill of several $100,000, and the city needs to be restitution. Before anything moves forward, I want some kind of agreement. I see 60 days after agreement's been done on a final plan. That's not gonna be satisfactory. I know Alderman Fairwell put it in his email also. The water's been shut off at the property along with everything else shut off, the fire suppression system, everything's off. I've advised fire department not to go in there if there's a fire, because I'm not losing my men to a system that has no water to protect itself. Utilities, you touched on it, they have to be separated. That was a big question for mine, because right now, Lock and Roll and water trouble. These are some of my concerns I just wrote down while you guys were talking. Again, I'll say it's the best idea that's been brought forward, but I gotta worry about the city and the mayor of this city. This is my town. You guys don't live here. I'm sorry if I come frank, that's my person. So again, the best I do, I'm glad the aldermen are engaged, asking questions, and I want them to continue asking questions. And I'm not gonna leave the vote either way. It's on them if we're gonna pass this to the next city council or not. They're the votes. So, do you have any more to present before we discuss it?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. Alderman, please, if this is a chance, what is your opinion to do at this point? We do have a 90-day time limit. When does that clock end, Tom? When's the 90 days?
As PGB. I know it's gotta be right.
Before after the first meeting. You guys know when that 90-day clock is? I hate special meetings. I have not.
Yeah, it's the 15th of November, whatever 90 days is from, but I'm not sure when that report that was generated was given to the board after that. That's when the clock starts. So probably sometime around early February.
The council, now, That you know there's a time limit that was reminded on all us. This be the time to ask any conditions that you personally want to throw out there. I threw out several, that we can clean up, but, what's your opinion, guys? I'll poll all you guys because I know it's hard to, I'll do a numerical order, Montoya.
Honestly, my only concern was, for me, were the parking lots, and it looks like they're, as far as their, how they look, it looks like obviously they have a plan in place to improve the visuals of that. And in my opinion, everything checks out, and with the building and going, like you said, this is the best, floor groups in yet so far, so, those are on my own.
Thank you, Alderman Rita.
Well, I did ask you if we were gonna need to make a decision tonight, and I was told that we did not need to make a decision tonight, so I don't know where I'm at yet.
It's not, we're not voting on anything. It's
Right,
still gonna be on
I
the
don't know
agenda.
where I'm at yet.
Fifth ward.
So, I mean, this project is a really big project, a lot of moving pieces. You know, it's hard to see exactly how this is gonna function as, you know, a grocery store for the neighborhood, you know, with people coming and going, and then with the residents there. You know, with the medical facility, you know, it's a big undertaking. The other thing is, I do have, again, concerns with this Bloomhaven. It's been mentioned here before, and I know you guys have done your price modeling for, you know, having residents and what they have to pay. But I believe another alderman had mentioned that it wasn't like within what a resident, a senior citizen would be making in their fixed income. So then I'm assuming that the family members would then have to provide the remaining funds for living in this residency. So that's a little concerning, being that I believe that the Bloomhaven has 30% occupancy, somewhere around there. You know, I would like to probably hear a little bit more as, you know, what you could technically do to, you know, combat that. Where are these residents coming from, as in, you know, seeming that Blue Island is a blue collar town. You know, so that would be a concern, and of course the wellness of the actual residents themselves. I mean, I do see this is like the mayor said, this is a good usage of the space. You know, having a grocery store, having a medical urgent care, but with all the different pieces in place, it seems like a really big undertaking that in fact that we need to really question and have everything kind of flushed out a little bit more. So that is concerning.
Alderman Carter.
One of my concerns is the price for someone living here. I'm looking at the Bardwell residences, which you say are comparable. If I was on my own, I could not afford to live there unless I didn't eat and stayed in my room all day. Also at the public hearing, people asked what amenities were going to be included in the rent. And you haven't brought anything today that outlines what's going to be included in the rent and what's not going to be included. So if a person moved into a studio and they had to pay extra for using, you know, parking, even simple things, you know, and you're not providing food, is, you know, meant like, Washington Homes, the residents get their meals included. It seems a little pricey for the square footage. And that's concerning to me. What happens if no one moves in? If Bardwell only has 30% residency, what happens to your plan if that happens here?
This is when we go down the line here, then I'll give you another opportunity. I want to say anything. Anything else, Alderman?
No, that's.
Alderman Roll?
Yeah, I think I'd probably first say that it's important to remember this is a preliminary approval, meaning that I think at this point, the way I see it, I'm weighing in on the viability of the plan at a high level. I think it's important we not go wading into particulars about any one business model. I think even if it's, if there's egregious oversights in the business model, and this property is renovated and improved and the bills paid, you know, that is still important progress. You know, I think it's reasonable for us to be more assertive with regard to the outstanding bills that are owed. I understand that, you know, lenders currently own the property, that they may not see a financial incentive to paying those, but I think it'd be a sign of good faith if we can negotiate a more timely paying of those outstanding bills as part of this. I think it's also reasonable that we define some framework for clarifying the ownership of parking, or even streamline it if possible. I support that as being contingencies to this moving forward. Otherwise, I do very much support the idea and the proposal as presented.
Thank you. Well, you guys can come back up if you want to talk about anything or answer anything now. If not, I feel that you're probably going to compile a bunch of stuff that was just said and send it to.
I was gonna do that. I was gonna take all the questions and then put something in writing, for everybody.
It's all on record, put on YouTube, but we asked a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's fine.
Is on pro forma right now. It takes a while to lease something up like this. Very similar, I mean, to find a comparable hospital, there's not a lot out there that do what we're doing. And they're right out in the pro forma right now. They're leasing a lot for the smaller rooms, the 225 people more are going ahead of schedule. Theirs is a little bit more complicated because they do have what we have, the independent senior, and you know, much like an apartment building, it's independent senior. They have assisted, and they also have memory care, and they have another kind of an additional thing for adult cognitive handicap. So they've got more moving parts, but they are on pro forma with their leasing and so
Yeah.
there's a lot going on. But you know, the lease up is going to be 2-3 years, and to have the medical tenants not waiting for the zoning is it's kind of chicken and egg. Got to get the zoning, it's in more financing, and we're done money on the marketing, the plans, everything else is a lot ahead of us. But I think Alderman Roll said, yeah, concept, there's some details here that we ironed out. Parking is included, by the way. And we can talk about the middle plans and what.
And I just wanted to keep the invitation open. If anyone wants to come see the Bloomhaven development in Aurora, Mitch, who was here a few weeks ago or in December, is a door open for anyone who wants to come and get a tour of that facility and have questions about how, you know, life is at the facility and meal plans and things like that there, and have ideas about how this could be improved as a result of what you've heard about them. I think everyone wants this project to be successful. So all that input is important.
I think our treasurer had a question.
I just do have one quick question. You did mention that at Bloomhaven, you currently offer urgent care there. Is that correct?
I think that's right.
At the Bloomhaven facility? And I was just curious, do they also offer oncology services or infusion? Or is that a new model that's being looked into for this area?
Yeah, that's gonna move that here. I'm not familiar with New Haven, but that's part of our plan.
Gotcha. So any of the other facilities, they currently don't offer oncology service. This is just a new model that's being looked at this facility.
But they have a myriad of medical, clinical services. Square footage that is commercial space, and a lot of that is medical stuff. So that was in response to the village wanting urgent care there. Initially, emergency room, but you can't have an emergency room without a hospital. Emergency room, you're gonna have 24/7 traffic, crime, you know,
I was just curious about the oncology side of
Yeah.
providing cancer patients. Having an option.
It would be, if I may speak,
Yep, go ahead.
it would be, outpatient, oncology service with oncologists. Basically, the infusion is a lot, everything is moving away from inpatient, everything is moving outpatient now. It would be basically anything that could be rendered outpatient, meaning chemotherapy.
Correct.
It's not limited to oncology, we're looking also at rheumatology, where they also have infusion services for chronic arthritis and cardiovascular diseases. So it would be, believe me, it would be a service that a community like this would appreciate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderman Carter.
Under Bloomhaven, you say that the senior residences are managed by Garden Management Solutions. Would that be the same company that would be managing the line?
Oh, we have not selected a property manager yet, but we've been in discussions with the folks at Bloomhaven about their property management services.
Any other questions from the council? All right, I have nothing else on the agenda for tonight. We just need to, look to adjourn. Call the reader, to second, call the roll, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Oh, any questions needs to do?
Oh, 1 second. He's gonna eject from the file first.
Yeah, final model.
When you walk out, you go close the door.